All right, welcome to Macronutrients 101. This is going to be a quick crash course on protein, carbs, and fats and how this is going to help you get to your goals quicker and easier without less effort. So my name is Coach Peter. I've been in the fitness industry for over 12 years. I have a nutrition minor with a kinesiology Bachelor of Science, and I've helped over 250 individuals in my past, and now I'm working with Broadcaster Fitness. So on today's agenda, the idea is to make macronutrients very simple and easy for you, right? Because we have protein, carbs, and fats in almost everything that we eat. However, they translate to the body a little bit differently, depending on where you're getting your sources of protein, carbs, and fats, and also a little bit of different factors where we're going to talk about stress and also body posture. So in protein, the main thing we're going to talk about is essential and non-essential amino acids. Carbohydrates, understanding that there's simple and complex carbs and how that affects our insulin levels. And more specifically, looking at high and low glycemic indexes in the foods. And when it comes to fats, not all fats are bad. There's also good fats. There's good saturated fats, such as coconut oil. And there's also bad fats that are unsaturated, such as trans fats. And ultimately, they affect our cholesterol levels a little bit differently. So the goal is to have protein, carbs, and fats that are going to make your blood quality a lot healthier. And we're also going to touch a little bit on alcohol. This is the untalked about, say, calories, but it affects our bodies in ways that we don't understand. That is very necessary for us to know so we can get to our goals effectively. All right. And the thing is, it takes time to understand these subjects deeply. Like I've been looking at these areas of fitness for over 12 years and I'm still learning. So it's better to keep things simple at first for you to get fast results. And then on your spare time for your own interest, it's good to look at these once in a while. So let's talk about macronutrients. The idea is that you don't want to be thinking about how to lose weight. Because when you think about losing weight, you're always focused on negativity and you're going to feel bad and you're going to feel suffocated about the choices that you're making. So really, it's about understanding why food is making us gain weight, right? Because it's necessary for us to understand that when you put something into your mouth, such as a carb, fat, and protein, it naturally has weight. And also water doesn't have any calories, but it does have weight. So when you do eat, you're going to gain weight no matter what. And that's not a bad thing. You need it because you need to survive. We need energy. So what you want to think of food as food is something that provides us with energy. Energy is needed for us to do the things that we love, such as work, exercise, or any sort of leisure activity. This is something that we need to have. We need to have energy. And just the byproduct of having energy is having extra weight. So if you think about a car, let's just say you're trying to take a road trip from San Francisco to like New York. In order for you to drive, you need to have gasoline, but gasoline has weight. But without gasoline, can you really drive? So again, it's not about how to lose weight. It's about understanding why we're gaining weight. So we have to gain weight in order for us to sustain life, but we don't need those extra calories. The extra calories that come from us feeling, let's just say, insecure, us feeling very sad, moody. Sometimes we feel depressed and you want to eat things to distract your mind. And that's what really causes us to gain that unwanted weight. But it's not a bad thing to gain weight. It's only bad when you're gaining excess weight. All right. So the goal is the better quality fuel you have, the better quality results you're going to get. So if you've missed our last two presentations, we're going to talk quickly about it right now. Basically, it was on resting metabolism. So you have to have a certain amount of calories in the day in order for you to survive, right? And this is what we call our basal metabolic rate. So this is the number of calories that you need to sustain your life, even if you're laying in bed all day. So I'm going to repeat that one more time. So if you're staying in bed all day, there's a certain amount of calories that your body and your organs require just for you to survive. So theoretically, if you have these calories, you should not be gaining any sort of weight. The thing is, though, it's a little bit more complicated than that. You will gain weight because you need to move to flush these calories around your body, and your body has to get rid of waste. And that's what happens when you metabolize. Just like when you drive a car, the gas eventually burns into carbon dioxide, right? It burns into a lot of carcinogens, and that's just a byproduct of metabolism. So it starts with fresh energy, and then it turns into something that is toxic. Likewise, when you eat your carbs, fats, and proteins, if you're not moving, it's going to metabolize in your body, but you're going to sustain the metabolites inside your body. And that's when it turns into poison. And otherwise, we get fat cells in order to protect your body. So as long as you're moving, you're determined to be on a calorie deficit. That's why it's necessary for you to just have at least your basal metabolic rate. Otherwise, you're going to find sacrifices in your mood and also your personality. And people are going to see that you're not the same person that you used to be. So what needs to happen? Again, you need to add movement into your life. Our bodies have a unique capacity to survive. So again, you could be eating less than 1,000 calories per day, but it's possible for you to gain body fat. And again, this is because your body subconsciously reduces its metabolism because it assumes that food and energy is not accessible. So if you think about, let's just say you take a person who has never really worked in their life. They've been born into a family that has a lot of money, and the family keeps giving the child, let's just say, a good allowance of $1,000 a month, and they're not even done high school. Eventually, that person gets accustomed to spending that $1,000 a month, even though they never worked for it. So what will happen if the parents say, hey, we're going to take that money out? They're still going to be that type of person to spend a lot. So they'll do a lot of things in their life, like get credit card debt, take loans out. And actually, it's the opposite of what I'm trying to say. But if we take the positive note of that, they're kind of in that spending zone, right? They're used to spending. So likewise, if we take the positive aspect of this, if you're someone who is eating a lot of food, right? Let's just say you're moving a lot, you're eating a lot, your body is going to have a higher metabolism because it's used to spending the energy. But if you're someone who's not, okay, let's take this is where it's going to make sense. If you're someone who's not spending money or you're not earning money, you're someone who is very stingy, then even if you make money, you're still going to feel that lack of abundance, and you're not going to spend that money. You're going to be very scarce. You're going to keep saving that money in that bank account, but you're going to live like you don't have money. Likewise, if you're someone who is not eating because you're afraid of, let's just say, spending the energy, you're afraid of eating more because you don't want to gain weight, well, what's going to happen is your body's going to reduce its metabolism so that you don't, let's just say you don't have that hunger and desire to burn more calories. And that's the problem with the body. When you don't teach your body certain habits, it's going to gain other habits. And this can actually be counterintuitive to gaining muscle and losing weight. So it's actually possible for you to gain weight while you eat foods higher in calories. And this is because you have a high calorie intake, but a low rate of metabolism. So in order for you to raise your metabolism, you have to be comfortable with metabolizing the food and utilizing the energy on a consistent basis. So we talked specifically about protein. Theoretically, calories coming from protein is 4 calories per gram, but it's a little bit different than carbohydrates. Like carbohydrates, you'll see on the next slide that there are 4 calories per gram in a carbohydrate as well, but they're not weighed the same because protein, if you break down proteins, it turns into something called amino acids. And these amino acids are actually essential for gene functioning. So in order for your DNA and your RNA, which is your genetics, in order for that to work properly and create hormones, you need to have protein, right? Carbohydrates don't have that same effect on hormones as protein does. So if we go into the specifics about protein, not all protein is the same. So if we take a vegetable protein and a meat protein, they're quite different. And you could see it physically. They're not really the same. A meat protein will have a little bit more sponginess to it, and it'll be a lot chewier. A vegetable protein will be a lot more crisp. So it doesn't really digest in the body the same way. And it's very important for you to understand this because some foods have complete proteins and a lot of foods are incomplete in their proteins. So that's why sometimes, depending on your diet, you won't get the results that you're looking for if you don't have that complete protein abundance. So what are complete proteins? Complete proteins contain essential and non-essential amino acids. Okay, so you're gonna have to watch this video a few times for you to get this, but essential amino acids mean that you need to get it from your diet. These are amino acids that the body can't produce. Non-essential amino acids, on the other hand, is we can refine them within our own body. So we can take different pieces of, let's just say food, and we can manufacture non-essential amino acids within our own body. So these are amino acids that you don't need to get from the diet because we can get it. We don't need to focus so much on how many there are, but the idea is if you have complete proteins in your diet, you will feel better. If you don't have complete proteins in your diet, then you're going to have to supplement, or you're going to have to start, broadening the dietary types of protein that you have instead of focusing on the foods that you like, because this will ultimately affect how much muscle you're going to grow. And the amount of muscle you're going to grow is effectively the metabolism that you're going to have while you're moving. So what are complete proteins? Typically, they're found in meat proteins, such as chicken, beef, fish, pork, egg, lamb, or anything that has muscle to it. Or if you're someone who doesn't eat meat proteins, you need to supplement it either with a supplement coming from a supplement store, or you need to do your own research and find out, okay, what kind of combination of vegetarian sources, such as beans and lentils, will give you that full source of amino acids. Okay, so again, the rule of thumb is focus on amino acids rather than protein, because when you look at a label on your nutrition foods, it'll say the same grams of protein as if it's all equal the same. But again, a broccoli might show that it has 4 grams of protein per 100 grams of serving, but it might not have all of the complete amino acids. Now, carbohydrates, I'm gonna break the myth over here. Carbohydrates aren't bad for you, okay? Because a lot of people have fear of having carbohydrates because it attaches a lot of weight to it. But again, weight is not bad. Carbohydrates, the reason why they attach weight is because a carb helps you hydrate. Okay, so Brett says this a lot. A carbohydrate is 2 words broken apart. You take a carb and you take a hydrate. So what's the need for hydration? That's what we should focus on when it comes to carbs. What's the need for hydration? When you're healthy, 60% of your body is water. When you're healthy, 80% of your muscle is water. When you're healthy, 95% of your blood is water. When you're healthy, you have mostly water in your body, right? So let's talk about some instances when your body's not 60% water. When you have a higher fat index and you're, let's just say 30% fat, well, you're going to have a fraction of your body that's muscle. You're going to have a fraction of your body that's bone. And if you take the percentages, your body water ends up becoming around 45%. And that's the reason why you might feel a little bit anxious. You might feel tired all the time, is because your body is not circulating that 60% of water. When muscles are not 80% water, what are some instances? If you ever have, let's just say muscle pain, you have stiffness, that's called a trigger point, or it's called a knot, right? And that's when the muscle is not having any water absorbed inside that muscle. And what's the reason for this? Well, there's a lot of reasons. Could be dietary. Most of it's actually coming from emotional stress. Some can actually come from a physical injury, like maybe it's acute where it wasn't your fault, or it could be chronic where it's something to do with posture. You might have exercised the wrong way, or you're sitting at a desk all day, or you're standing all the time. So when your muscles aren't circulating water, it's going to feel like it's burning all the time, and your joints aren't going to move properly. And that's when you can actually have risk of arthritis in the future. So that's the reason for having water within your muscle. Now, blood is very simple. Blood is the reason why you breathe. Blood is the reason why you move food around your body. Blood is the reason why your hormones circulate effectively or not. 95% of your blood is supposed to be water and 5% is supposed to be plasma. So without carbohydrates, you're not going to retain that water and you're essentially going to pee very fast. And especially if you're someone who works a lot, if you don't have carbohydrates, you're going to be taking a lot of trips to the washroom. And in order for you to avoid going to the washroom, you're not going to drink water, which is going to be even worse for you. So that's the need to have carbohydrates. You need to have it because it holds water for you. Now, Why don't people have carbohydrates? Why don't people have water? Most of the time, it's because they don't have the energy to move or they don't like moving. But that's not the way to go about it, right? It's not going to substitute for inactivity. It's better for you to be who you are at your brightest health by having carbohydrates and moving than to be someone who is sedentary and not have carbohydrates because they're afraid of weight gain. Okay, so the thing that we have to understand about carbohydrates is that our nervous system demands carbohydrates. Our nerves require carbs. 80% of the energy coming from foods demands carbohydrates. That's what the nervous system needs. So without carbohydrates, your brain and your nerves won't work properly. You'll feel like your thinking is a lot slower. You'll also feel like your confidence is a lot lower because your blood sugar is always low. And you're going to be, if you're not breathing properly, if you're not someone who is very aerobic, you're going to have anxiety, right? And that's going to affect your mood. It's also going to affect your stress levels. And then your body's going to naturally start burning other sources of tissue like protein, and it's going to create sugars in your body to spike it. So instead of breaking down your own protein, why don't we just have it in our dietary sources, right? So that's the need to have carbohydrates. But at the same time, you have to make sure that you don't go overboard because having too much carbohydrates in your body can cause you to have, let's just say, weight gain, unnecessary weight gain. And in the long run of having tons of blood sugar, your body's going to have a lot of illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and cancer, right? So again, it's not so much about avoiding carbohydrates. It's more about pairing it with movement. As long as you're moving, your body will have endorphins released from your muscles and you'll be able to manage the blood sugar. So if we talk specifically about carbohydrates, there are some that are going to affect your blood well in the healthy manner, and there are some that's going to be a little bit more dangerous. For example, if you have simple carbohydrates break down quickly and they provide us with the surge of energy and they give us peaks. They spike your blood glucose, but they don't really last long. So this is also known as having a high glycemic index. So if you go on Google and you type in high glycemic index foods, you'll find all the foods that will give you a surge of energy, but it won't last very long. So for some examples, sugar, candy, chocolate, ice cream, anything that we find really, really delicious that will instantly boost our mood, most likely will have a high glycemic index. Okay. So what's the problem with this? The problem with this is when you have them, you feel amazing. When you don't have them, you're hitting depression. And that's the reason why it's kind of good to avoid these foods. You want to have a steady emotional base so that, you know, you have the energy to do the things that you want and not worry. Okay. So that is when you start resorting to things called complex carbohydrates. Complex carbohydrates take more time and energy to break down. They keep your blood sugar regulated steadily and longer. So this is known as a low to moderate glycemic index. So what kind of foods have it? Typically starches, such as potatoes, bananas. There are foods such as oatmeal and quinoa, whole grains, and a lot of fruits, because they have fiber, they will lower the glycemic index. And what this does is it gives you little bits of energy. It's just like having an allowance. Instead of winning the lottery and having $1 million put into your bank account, you will get $1 million over the course of, let's just say, 5 years. And because of that, you won't be having massive spending habits. You'll be able to take that money and live an enjoyable life, at least for the next 5 years. But if you have $1 million all at once, who knows, you might spend it in the next month. So that's the need to understand complex carbohydrates. Another subject that's very important and related to carbohydrates is fiber. Okay, so beyond this, let's just say call, there's something that we have to understand about our body. So there's something in our body, especially in our stomach, called gut bacteria. It's called the microbiome. These are living organisms that actually eat the foods for us. And it breaks down the food so that it can be digested correctly and be put into our bloodstream. So it's easier for it to be metabolized. So in order for us to actually take care of our gut, you need to have a lot of fiber. And what fiber also does is it creates substance. If you think about having ice cream, let's just say you have ice cream which has no fiber. Once it goes into your gut, it turns into something like yogurt and it gets very pasty. But if you have something like cabbage, when you digest it in your body, it still has substance to it. And how does food move through your digestive system? Your intestines will actually squeeze the food and it will push it along the digestive system so that it eventually turns into poop. But if you're having foods that don't have fiber, it's just going to turn into mud. And that's the reason why we bloat. Most people, and this is a very disturbing fact, but you need to understand that most people actually have around 15 to 20 pounds of poo sitting in their stomach. And that's the reason why we bloat, because the food is not moving through the digestive system. And in the long run, you can have diseases and cancers. And also, it doesn't look good in the mirror. You're also not going to feel very great when your stomach is coming out emotionally. You're not going to feel great because your stomach's going to also feel like it's having a stomach. You're just having stomach ache all the time. You're having diarrhea. That doesn't feel really good at all. So, simple rule of thumb, carbs don't make you fat. Carbs are energy. Energy that is not metabolized can turn into fat. It's a survival mechanism that prevents our genes from bonding with the sugar and affecting our hormones. Okay, so make sure you have a lot of natural foods, make sure you have a lot of fiber, and have complex carbs. Okay, it's very necessary for you to have carbs for you to be who you are. All right, let's talk about fats. This is the, let's just say, confusing subject. When it comes to fats, a lot of people are worried about fats because we associate it with the fat that we have in our body. But rather than think of it as body fat, think of it as oils. Okay, so not all fats are actually bad for you. They're part of who you are. But there's good quality fats and there's bad quality fats. That's the main thing to take from this. So if you take olive oil, avocado oil, nuts, salmon, coconut, yes, they're high in calories. They have 9 calories per gram. But what do they do for your bloodstream? That's what we have to think about. So if you think about olive oil, it's very cancer protective. Same thing with fish oil. Omega-3s are also cancer protective. Same with coconut oil. Even though it's saturated fat, meaning that at room temperature it's hard, still it's cancer protective because it has a lot of antioxidants. Antioxidants have a lot of oxygen and it kills all of the toxins, the carcinogens that are within our body that can come from bad fats, such as corn oil. Not all beef, we're talking about the ones that aren't treated very well. Margarine, which is trans fat, shortening, soybean oil, any kind of fats that's been heavily processed inside a factory, these tend to come with carcinogens. And these are the carcinogens that end up causing cancer and end up causing weight gain. But when you have good fats, these fats just lubricate our body and it allows food to move through the body a lot effectively. And it gives us energy. So fats aren't something that we want to avoid. Fats actually are necessary for you to have good emotion. Fats bring out flavor and it also calms down your nervous system. So if we go back 2 slides, and one slide, we talk about, the brain energy. 80% of the energy is coming from carbs. 20% is actually coming from fats. So if you think about carbs and you give a child sugar, what's going to happen to their energy? They're going to be very hyper. But if you're hyper at night, well, you're not going to sleep and recover. And that's another part of your fitness. A lot of people aren't actually losing weight because they work out 6 to 7 days a week because they want to get that calorie deficit. But what's happening is their muscles aren't actually recovering. And the muscles that they're building are actually turning into fat and carbs because of the stress hormones that they have. So that's why it's necessary for you to have fats. When you have fats in your body, you don't feel that desire to work out 6 to 7 days a week. You're okay with working out 3 to 4 days a week. And because of that, your muscles are actually a lot more stronger. And when you work out the next time, your performance increases. And that's the actual truth with weight loss. You need to be a person who's able to take the same amount of food and be able to utilize that food a lot more effectively. So let's just say you have a 1,500 calorie diet. If you can take all that food and let's just say do 100 push-ups, compared to someone who's only able to do 20 push-ups, guess who's burning more calories? It's the person who's eating the same food, but doing a higher volume of training, right? So that's only possible when your body is able to recover. And that's the need for fats. Fats help you get into that recovery state. But obviously, again, you want to have good quality fats that are good for your bloodstream, right? So here's another subject that's related to fats. It's called lipoproteins. So there's HDL and LDL, high density lipoprotein versus low density lipoprotein. You might also know this as cholesterol. So when it comes to lipoproteins, how to understand them is these are protective mechanisms. These are basically, if you think of them, they're just messengers to take care of your toxins. So how do you know which one's good? How do you know which one's bad? Easy rule of thumb is looking at the word density. So a good lipoprotein is called high density lipoprotein. And the reason for it is because it has a strong shell. A bad cholesterol called low density lipoprotein. The reason why it's bad is because the shell is very low and dense. Okay. So if you think about, let's just say you have a carcinogen or a bacteria going through your body. Okay. Let's just say you had some bad food or you had alcohol and it's just circulating within your body and it's causing inflammation, causing a lot of protein to break down, or it's causing hormonal dysfunction. Your body doesn't want to keep that. It wants to keep you happy. So what it does is it takes this lipoprotein and it will go around the toxin, but it has to exit the body somehow. It doesn't just stay in the bloodstream. If it does, it turns into plaque. It sits on the artery wall. So it has to be removed from your body. Either you have to pee it out, you have to poo it out, you have to sweat it out, you have to cough it out. It has to exit your body some way. And the way it does that is through the immune system. But again, let's go back to the lipoprotein. If the shell is very tough, you have this artery wall, the lipoprotein, because the shell is very hard, will be able to pass through the artery wall without causing any disruptions because the shell is hard. But imagine if you had instead you had a low density lipoprotein. Because the shell is very weak, imagine if it was trying to go through the artery wall and the arteries, they're muscles, right? They're tough. If the shell is weaker than the wall, guess what happens? It splatters and then it gets stuck on the wall. And that's what we call plaque. And plaque is the reason for heart disease. So what's the need to have good quality cholesterol? To protect your heart. And what causes all these carcinogens? Essentially anything that really makes us feel overly good, right? Alcohol, sweets, let's just say anything that makes us feel stimulated, even just hanging around bad friends, that can also cause you to have a lot of cholesterol, right? So that's why it's important for you to really take care of your foods. Make sure you're having foods that are better for your blood. Okay, so what is typically high in high density lipoprotein? Root foods, things that are from the ground, such as onions. Onions are really high in HDL. Cabbage, you have a lot of, even what's it called? Oatmeal. Oatmeal is high in good cholesterol as well. Okay, but what you want to do is just take these concepts, go on Google, and just find out the list for yourself because everyone has a different preference when it comes to food. You just have to find the ones that work for you that are also good for your blood. Okay, so before I move on to the next slide, again, easy rule of thumb, fats aren't bad for you. Not all fats are bad for you specifically. Fats help you relax. But again, if you are someone who is wanting to relax too much, you're going to become a lethargic. And then eventually you're going to become someone who's sedentary. And that's also what's going to cause you to have weight gain. It's also high in calories. So that's why you want to pair it with recovery and movement. Lacking fats in your diet will make you feel very anxious. So that's why you need to have fats in your diet, but in moderation. So let's talk about the final, group of calories. This is coming from alcohol. So this one's really challenging to track because, not all alcohol affects your body in the same way. For example, even though alcohol in wine is higher, it does come with tannins. It does come with polyphenols and antioxidants because it was made from grapes. But I mean, it's not an excuse to drink more alcohol from the wine because of those. It's just, you have to understand that, sometimes wine can be very helpful for you. Sometimes, it can actually cause harm. And beer, beer may only have 5% alcohol, but it's made from wheat. And that also has carbohydrates in it. it will cause you to have a lot of weight gain when you drink a lot. Cider, again, it only has 5% alcohol, but it has tons of sugar. And not a lot of people track their alcohol, and people end up drinking anywhere from 500 to 1,000 calories per night just from alcohol in itself. And they don't also consider let's just say, the negative repercussions of alcohol. For example, alcohol is very inflammatory, and it also takes away from your sleep. So you'll notice that after you drink some alcohol, you won't have deep sleep. You might feel very tired so that you feel like sleeping, but you won't feel sleepy throughout the night. And that could affect, the next day. You won't want to eat foods. Your body's just going to burn all the time. You'll end up becoming really dehydrated the next day, and it'll be hard to get back into rhythm. So the thing is, can you have alcohol? Absolutely. There's a time and a place. Like sometimes you're going to a wedding, sometimes you're going to a birthday party, and it's natural for you to have alcohol, right? It's part of the social setting. But when it comes to being someone who, let's just say, does it more on a frequent basis, it's going to harm you more than it's going to give you a positive effect. So what you need to understand about alcohol is that it has 7 calories per gram. In order to actually track these calories, you got to Google it. You got to find the true nutrition value, and it will have it on the website. But make sure you're tracking this. If your goal is weight loss, do your best not to drink alcohol. But at the same time, if you're, in order for your mental health and you want to make sure that you're not that isolated person in a party, just have sips, right? Don't drink because you want to get into a good mood. Drink because you're already in a good mood, okay? Because when you are in a good mood, you have all these good hormones already in your body, and your body actually digests the alcohol a lot better. But when you're in a bad mood trying to get into a good mood, you already have stress hormones, and the alcohol can actually accelerate decay in your body. Okay, so in the case you are drinking, just make sure that you eat well and hydrate well while you're drinking, before you're drinking, and also after you're drinking. Yes, you're going to pack on calories, but that's the choice that you have to make, right? It's more important for you to be a healthy person than for you to worry about calories. If you're worried about calories, it's better not to drink alcohol at all. Okay, so you can make up for the added calories as long as you take action on it. All right, so I've been talking a lot for the last 35 minutes. Again, it can get very overwhelming, especially if you're trying to memorize this for the first time. So it's best to keep things simple. It's been a while since I actually tracked calories. I tracked calories for 4 years, and because of the repetition I've been doing every day, I can pretty much see it on my plate. Maybe I'm off by 100 calories, but that's where you want to eventually be. You want to be someone who has their time back, and you want to be someone who doesn't have so much stress when it comes to food. So visually, what I found was that when you have 50% of your plate in volume coming from fruits and vegetables of different colors and different variety, not just, one broccoli or one cucumber and tomato and call it a day. No, if you have, a very, very diverse salad on your plate, you're going to have a lot of micronutrients and multivitamins. Okay, 25 of your plate in volume should be coming from protein. And when it comes to protein, if it's something that was living in the past, you got to make sure that it was happy while it was alive. So even though meat can have fat on it, that's not a bad thing, okay? It's more about what was the quality of life when it comes to that protein prior to it being on your plate. So a steak that was on sale versus grass-fed beef, where you actually know the quality of life, is going to have different effects on your body. So the idea is make sure that the food, when it comes to the protein, it came from a stress-free animal. So that should be roughly a quarter of your plate. If it's lean, it's more easier to track when it comes to calories, because obviously the ones that taste really good with fat, it comes with fat. So it's going to be harder to track. But again, it's not bad. You just have to make sure that you're under your calorie, let's just say your resting metabolism, which is your goal. Last but not least, carbohydrates. You need to make sure that it's complex carbohydrates and it has a lower glycemic index. That way that you're not you're not hungry for very often. So there's a subject that people always look at, and it's called intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting essentially means that the more time you spend not eating, the more fat you're going to burn. And that's very true. I mean, if you're not eating, you're not gaining weight. But at the same time, if you're not eating, then your blood sugar is going to be very unsteady. And it takes a really strong mind for you to not eat when times you're feeling dizzy, right? So how do you manage this? How do you make sure that you're not feeling dizzy, but you're still intermittent fasting? Have complex carbohydrates. When you have foods that digest slower and they keep you full for longer, your insulin levels are going to drop. And that's going to be the reason why you're actually losing body fat. It doesn't have much to do with the fact that, let's just say you have 1,500 calories broken up 3 times in a day. That's one aspect of it. But if we look deeper at the hormones, you could have 500 calories per meal 3 times a day, or you could be someone who has 1,500 calories in just the evening in a window of 4 hours. The person who is going to be on a 1,500 calorie diet, excuse me, they're both on a 1,500 calorie diet, but the person who is going to be on a fasting stage is going to be the one who's going to actually see more fat loss. And the reason for it is because they're spending more time not eating. They're spending more time in that stage where they're not in insulin. So it's insulin that actually causes us to gain fat cells. It's not a bad thing. You need to gain energy. You need to gain sugar and you need to gain fat in order for you to store energy. So it's not bad to have high insulin, but if you have high insulin and you're not doing anything about it, that's when your body develops something called insulin resistance. And that's when your blood sugar is high all the time and you have absolutely no energy and your body ends up becoming really sick. So fasting is really good for this. Fasting is really good because it takes your body away from insulin and your body says, okay, I'm not going to digest the food that I have in my stomach as energy. I'm going to start digesting the food that's already in my body, such as body fat cells, as energy. And that's when you start losing weight. Again, you need to make sure that you're eating well in order for you to fast. If you're having 1,500 calories of simple carbohydrates coming from chocolate and alcohol, well, it's not going to give you the same benefits of someone who eats oatmeal, right? And having different types of good quality foods, fruits and vegetables, and high quality protein. So calories is one part of the equation. But for you to see real success, you got to make sure that you're creating good blood cells. Okay, so when in doubt, just think of your blood. Okay, don't think of your body fat. Don't think of the person in the mirror who's shaming themselves for not being at their goals. Think of the person who is aiming to become healthier. You're looking to have better joints. You're looking to have stronger muscles. You're looking to have healthier organs. The nature of having this type of lifestyle causes weight loss, causes body toning. And that's when you're going to get to your goals. It's when you focus on actually becoming a healthier person who is a lot more fit, who has a better balance in lifestyle when it comes to sleep. That's the person who gets that dream body. But the person who is rapidly trying to lose weight because they're sad about where they're at, even if you're following the numbers, you're going to actually cause more stress hormone. And that is the hormones that actually make your body look the way you do. Okay, so just focus on the process. Really make sure that you're just being nice to yourself and you're doing it through action. You're not just doing affirmations and mantras in your head saying, oh, I'm a good person, I'm a good person. Show it through your actions. Eat better quality foods. Take time for yourself. Stop trying to help people when you don't have the energy. Make sure that you're sleeping very well, because it'll show when you're not drinking alcohol and when you're not, let's just say, hanging around people who cause you stress. This will show. And once you start feeling better, that means that your hormones are better, and that will lead to better results. All right. So that's the end of this presentation. This is probably one you're going to watch over and over. Yeah, take the time for yourself to digest this fully. Eventually, you're going to become a person who doesn't really think about this, right? I don't really think about this anymore. I just go to the gym and I enjoy my time. And that's when you actually get to your goals. That's when I found that your posture goes into the right place, where you're just focused on activity and you're excited about your next meal, right? So that's when you get to your goals, when you become a happier person. Thank you very much. And now we're going to lead to the Q&A. All right, so here, I'm going to press stop recording.